Hello everyone, welcome to another video here. So let's get started with our quotes of the day. It's going to be Luke chapter 1 verse 37. For no word from God will ever fail. Alright, so that is our quote of the day. And today we're going to cover the topic will be script scope and variables. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, so in PowerShell, the understanding of a script scope and variables is critical for managing how the data flows and how it persists within scripts, functions, and sessions. So in PowerShell, it uses scopes in to control the visibility and I guess the lifetime of the variables, functions, and aliases, and some other items as well. So the type of scopes they're global, script, local, private, and parent. And I guess the order, how it works in, how if PowerShell, if it wants to resolve a variable, it switches through the scopes in a specific order. If you have different types, so for example, it'll go through the local, which is what we've been doing all the time. So everything is within the same script. The script scope. So that's so it'll go through local first, which is number one, and then the next one down, it will check to see if there's a script scope. So that's kind of limited to the script file itself where it's defined. So the variable defined in the script scope are not accessible outside of the script itself. Then there's the next one it will check for is global if you have any of those. So the global, that one will have it applies to the entire session itself, so the variables and the functions in the global scope. So they're accessible anywhere. And then there's the parent. So the parent, that refers to the scope that is called the current scope. Alright, so I think we covered all of them here. And let's take a look at, let's try to see if we can do an example here. So let's go here. I guess we'll cover the most basic one, which is local. And let me alter this a little bit. So alright, so what I'm doing here is I'm just creating a function. As we all know, well, if you watched the previous videos, this is how we create a function in PowerShell, at least the actual structure of it, the basic structure. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a local variable. Now, if you have watched the other videos or if you've worked with PowerShell before, this local var could be anything, any variable you want to name it as. So I'm just calling it local var just for this example, and I'm going to say this is local, this is our value. Alright. Okay, so that is the, so we're declaring a local variable there, and then we're just going to write it. So it's just going to be a very simple function, and all it's going to do, it's going to do a write host with the local var writing out to the output here. Okay, so we have that, and then so the we do our test local. This is how we call the actual function itself. So when you run this command, it'll actually run this function. Okay, so and then what we're going to do is, so we're going to check to see if this will be available outside the local var. If it's outside, if you could still call it outside of the function itself, right? So this is within the function, so we're going to see if we can call that local variable outside of the function. And let's see. All right, so let's try this out, and let's see what happens. So, okay, so you can see what happened here was that it called the actual it called the actual function with this command here. This actually worked. So it ran this function and this came out fine. And this, but it didn't run this one because the local variable was not initiated outside of the function itself. So whatever ran the function, and we could also prove this as well. I could put this and in function, right? And then I don't know, we could do if you want to kind of get more granular just to verify it and you didn't want to rely on the blank spaces. So this should kind of give you more proof. There you go. So you can see this is local in function. So this is local is the actual value that we're expecting in both places, if we could see. So in function means it ran this fine, and outside function means the test did not, well, this variable does not have a value, or this variable doesn't exist outside of the function. So this kind of proves that it didn't initiate a variable, or the variable, yeah, it proves that that variable is not available outside of the function, just to kind of give you some proof there. So now we're going to kind of like define variables in specific scopes. So we kind of covered pretty much the local variable here. And obviously if you wanted, you could declare the variable outside of this and it would work. So that's how you know it works. And so we're going to define like some of the variables here. How are we going to do that? Okay, so yeah, let me just come lower down here. So what are we going to do? Okay, so this is global, so let's do global. So let's say global scope, and then the global scope we would do, you could do script, and then I'll just call it script var. That'll equal to alright, so this is a script scope. Let's do another one, and the other one would be, sorry, this is a global, sorry, global scope, that's what I meant to say. Here we go. Alright, so I think I made a mistake. So this is supposed to be global as well. There you go. I think I had it right. There you go. Okay. Alright, so the script scope is the actual one that I did there. I should have just named it the other way. Well, anyway. Okay, so then this one will be the actual script scope. And then, well, you know what? Just to make it easier, I'll put this one as global var. There you go. And then this one will be called script var. And then this will equal, this is alright. And then the other one would be more of a, I guess, a private scope. Come on. Okay, so I think we got everything we needed here. Now we want to access the scope. So let's create another function. So let me just do okay. Test scopes and okay. So let's maybe start off with our the default, which is our, well, I think, sorry, we covered that one already, which was the default, which was more like the local var. And now we're gonna cover the let's try maybe the global var. So if you remember, so the global var, that applies to the entire session itself, and that those variables and functions in the global scope, so they're accessible anywhere, everywhere, so that way within your session. So what is it? So let's try to get that going here. So the default scope, sorry, not default, I keep saying default, I meant the global. So the global, let's we'll test that scope, and I'll just change this to a global here. And how do we do that? Remember how we have to start off with global, right? So let's do that. Alright, so you start off with global, and then you put the global var. So maybe I'll just copy this in here. I think I didn't do this properly, but let me just comment these out so that way we could prove that these variables are being worked wherever we put it. I'm just going to use these just to copy and paste wherever I want in the script at a time, so that way it would save time. Alright, and then we're going to do write host, and that write host we're going to print out whatever happened there. So we're just going to put like global variable here. So this is our static string, and then we're going to actually put the variable here, so that way we could prove that ran inside of the function. And then we want to do one outside of the function too, right? So we're going to, so let me put this out here first. Alright, and then our other line, we're going to say write host global var outside. Okay. And then we want to put our global var in here just to verify that it works. So I'll put inside for when it runs within the function, and then outside. So that way we can see if we get the values inside and outside, right? So let me blow away these two, so that way we won't see those running. And then I'll just put CLS to kind of clear the screen before we run the function. I mean the script. All right. Okay, so as you can see, the global variable worked in both places. It worked within when the variable was declared within the script, and it worked when it was declared outside of the script as well. When I say declared, sorry, when the value was actually called outside of the script, the variable itself. So you could tell wherever we declare that global var that it worked. Now, if you wanted to test it outside, you could do that as well, and to see if it'll work inside of the variable. So let me do that here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it before that function just to, and I'll call this global var 2. test global at top. And just to speed up, I'll just copy and paste in here. Oh, you know, I didn't have to do all that, my bad. So let me put a 2 on this and put a 2 here. So the expectation is, so even though this is declared here, that's okay. Well, let me just remove it so that way you could, as we picture this, you will see how it actually works. So now we declared it outside, and now we're just going to see if it'll work within the function and outside the function. So this is the second case where we declared the variable outside of the function itself, and the first use case that we just did, we declared it inside the function first. So as you can see, it worked in both places. It doesn't matter if you declared it in the function or declared it out of the function. So this is a true global, and this will work for your entire session. All right, so let's go over to the script var now. So the script var, so that variable is declared, the script is accessible only within the script. So the global, the difference with the global is if you created another script within the same session, the global variable would still be there. All right, so the script variable, the assumption is that it will, well, not assumption, sorry, it will work as how it works here, but only within this script. The global is you could have multiple scripts within the same PowerShell session, and that global will apply throughout multiple scripts as well. So that applies to so that's the difference with the session and the script. So the session, that global variable will work throughout your whole session, where variables and functions in the global scope are accessible everywhere. And in the script, that's limited to the script file itself. So this is considered the script file itself, and that's how it will work. So I don't think we need to run this one, but if you wanted to know how, I guess we could do a quick, I could quickly show you here. So let's say we wanted to do that quickly. All I'll just do is, yeah, I'll just change this out. So that way we could just show you how. But it's pretty much doing the same exact thing, except because we're in the same script file, that's why you're not going to really see any difference. But this will show you it's going to use the actual script scope instead. So let's try that here. Test script scope at top, script var. Alright, so let's run that quickly, and you can see it worked fine because it's all within the same script. Alright, so now we're going to move over to like a private scope. So this is only accessible within the current scope. Alright, so let's do a quick test of that. So I think it'll kind of like only apply to, you could have it apply like within the current scope. So we can, let's try that inside of the inside of the function itself. So that should be private. Oops, forgot to put private here. All right, and then we're gonna put private var. Okay, and then let's put that equal to, I'll copy this here. All right, and what am I doing? Okay, yeah. So this will change to private var. And then I'm going to take this. Oops, we got to change it here. I'll call that here. Now, could you guess what this would look like? What the variables? Okay. So we're going to declare a private variable inside of here, and okay, and then we're gonna print out the value inside the function, and then we're gonna also check to see if if that variable is accessible outside of the function itself. So let's run this. Okay, so you can see it ran, and as expected, because it's private, so it's wherever the scope is called. So if it was called within the function, it's private within the function. And if it's so you could see it worked within the private scope of the function itself, so that right host actually executed correctly, and this had a value to that variable. But when we actually ran it, tried to access the variable outside of the function, that did not work. So that private is exclusively working where it was declared in the function. All right, so I think that's about it. I mean, there are others that we could have tried out, but I didn't want to run the video too long. So, but you could just practice the other types, and you could play around, like, you know, declaring it outside the function, declaring it inside the function, and that way you could see where this will be helpful in your scripts. You know, you could use, I don't know, I've seen where you could use just pretty much the local and private variables wherever you want, pretty much all the time. But sometimes it's helpful if you want to have multiple scripts, and maybe you want variables to be passing over to other scripts, or within your script you want to access it outside and inside functions, etc. So that's where these come in very handy. Okay, so some best practices: just try to minimize like global variables. So overusing global variables, they can lead to like conflicts and unintended side effects. When you use like script scopes for script scopes for scripts, so when you declare those variables at the script level for use like within your script, just make sure those are best practices when you do that. Try to limit the private variables, like when you use private scope to like protect sensitive variables or prevent overriding. So that's where you would kind of like try to limit when you're using private variables there. And when you're explicitly trying to qualify global changes, use like the global, that's where you'll use the global scope, and that would make changes to your global variables intentionally. All right. Yeah, so there's a few more to here, but I'll let you kind of explore on your own. But you kind of get the gist of it on how we're using the different variables, etc., and how you kind of could declare them with the scope name and then the actual variable name that you want it to be used. All right, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's close off the day with our quote of the day. All right, so it's going to be Luke chapter 1 verse 37. For no word from God will ever fail. And if you're not going to church, try to find a good Bible-based church. Don't forget to read your Bibles, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.